Have you ever woken up ridiculously early, like 5 a.m., maybe even earlier, and felt good? Not forced. Not dragged out of bed by an alarm that sounds like a smoke detector having a meltdown. You just wake up. Your eyes open. Your mind is already quietly alert. Meanwhile, the rest of the world is still asleep, and there's this strange sense that you've been given extra time that no one else knows about. And if you've ever told someone that you naturally wake up that early, they probably reacted in one of two ways. Either they looked at you like you're some kind of productivity superhero, or like you're deeply unwell. Why would you do that to yourself? They ask, clutching their coffee at 9:30 a.m. like it's life support. But here's the surprising part. For many people who wake up extremely early, it's not about discipline. It's not about hustling harder or chasing some motivational quote about success. It's often something much quieter, much more psychological, and much more wired into how their brain and body actually work. Your brain runs on something called a circadian rhythm. Think of it like an internal clock, but not the kind you hang on a wall. It's more like a conductor in an orchestra, coordinating hormones, body temperature, alertness, digestion, and sleep cycles in a repeating 24-hour pattern. And this conductor lives deep inside your brain, in a region called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. Yes, that's a mouthful. But all you need to know is that it's incredibly sensitive to light, darkness, and routine. For some people, this clock runs earlier. Not better. Not worse. Just earlier. Researchers call these people morning chronotypes. In everyday language, they're often called larks. Their brain starts releasing cortisol, the hormone that helps you feel awake and ready, earlier than average. Their melatonin, the hormone that makes you sleepy, also arrives earlier in the evening. So while others are just hitting their stride at 10:30 p.m., early risers are already feeling like their mental curtains are closing. It's not a choice in the way we usually think about choices. It's closer to being left-handed. And here's where things get interesting psychologically. Waking up early often aligns with a temperament that prefers anticipation over reaction. When you wake before the world demands anything from you, your brain experiences what psychologists sometimes call proactive control. You're acting before being acted upon. That quiet hour feels like psychological territory that belongs entirely to you. Imagine the difference between starting your day by immediately answering messages, dodging responsibilities, and reacting to noise, versus starting it in stillness, with your thoughts arriving before the outside world does. One feels like being pulled into motion. The other feels like choosing motion. That difference matters more than we realize. Early risers often describe those hours as mentally clean, and neuroscience supports that feeling. After sleep, especially during the early morning, your brain has just completed processes that clear metabolic waste and consolidate memories. You're operating on what is, biologically speaking, freshly organized neural circuitry. It's like working at a desk that's just been tidied overnight. That clarity can feel almost addictive. But there's another layer that's less talked about. Many people who wake up early aren't chasing productivity. They're chasing solitude. Early morning is one of the last socially acceptable forms of being alone. No notifications. No expectations. No performance. Just space. And psychologically, space is powerful. When your environment is quiet, your brain shifts more easily into what's called internally directed cognition. That's when you're reflecting, planning, imagining, or simply existing without constant interruption. It's the same mental state associated with creativity, long-term thinking, and emotional regulation. In a way, early risers are borrowing silence from the night without actually staying up for it. Historically, humans lived much closer to this pattern. Before artificial lighting, many societies naturally rose with dawn. Philosophers, farmers, monks, and writers all described early morning as uniquely suited for clarity and contemplation. There's a reason so many spiritual traditions place reflection at sunrise. It's not just poetic, it's neurological timing. But in modern life, being an early riser can feel slightly out of sync with the culture. Late-night entertainment, social events, endless scrolling, and global connectivity all push activity later into the evening. If your brain wants to sleep at 9:30, you might feel like you're missing out. You might try to override it. Stay up longer. Fit in. And that's where tension starts. Because chronotype isn't just about sleep preference. It's tied to personality traits and emotional patterns. Studies have found that morning-oriented individuals often score higher in traits like conscientiousness and long-term goal orientation. Not because waking up early makes you virtuous, but because both are expressions of a nervous system that prefers predictability and structure. Your brain likes closure. It likes beginnings. It likes rhythms. Meanwhile, the night-oriented brain tends to thrive on novelty and flexibility. Different wiring, different strengths. Neither is superior. But when society praises one while scheduling around the other, misunderstandings happen. Early risers sometimes get labeled as rigid. Night owls get labeled as lazy. Both are usually wrong. There's also a fascinating emotional dimension. Many early risers report feeling calmer in the morning than at any other time of day. That's partly hormonal. Cortisol follows a natural morning spike called the cortisol awakening response. In healthy patterns, this rise doesn't feel stressful. It feels energizing, like your system is gently turning the lights on. If you wake up aligned with that rhythm instead of fighting it, you don't feel jolted awake. You feel carried, and that can shape your relationship with the day itself. Starting in calm often means you carry less background anxiety into everything that follows. Of course, there are challenges. Being awake early in a late-night world can feel isolating. You may find yourself tired during evening social events, or frustrated that others don't understand why you can't just sleep in. You might even question yourself. Am I doing life wrong? But psychology would suggest you're not misaligned. You're simply tuned differently. There's a concept called social jet lag, which happens when your biological clock and social schedule constantly conflict. Many early risers experience a milder version of this, especially if they try to force themselves into late-night habits. The exhaustion isn't from waking early. It's from denying when their brain wanted to sleep. When early risers honor their natural timing instead of resisting it, they often experience better mood stability, improved focus, and surprisingly, more sustainable energy throughout the day. It's less like pushing yourself to wake up early, and more like stepping into a current that was already flowing that direction. And then there's the psychological symbolism of morning itself. Humans are deeply responsive to transitions. Sunrise is one of the most powerful daily transitions we have. It signals renewal, possibility, and control over beginnings. Waking early lets you witness that shift instead of rushing past it. That's not just aesthetic. It's emotionally regulating. You start the day with evidence that things reset, that yesterday ended, that something new is beginning whether you planned it or not. For people wired to notice patterns and meaning, that matters. So if you're someone who naturally wakes early, maybe it's not because you're trying to get ahead of life. Maybe it's because your brain prefers arriving gently instead of being thrown into motion. Maybe those quiet hours are less about productivity and more about alignment, about starting from the inside rather than reacting to the outside. And if you're not an early riser, this isn't a prescription. It's simply a reminder that human rhythms come in different shapes. The goal isn't to copy someone else's clock. It's to understand your own. Because whether you wake at dawn or midnight, psychology keeps pointing to the same idea. Well-being doesn't come from forcing yourself into the right schedule. It comes from living in sync with the one your brain already built. So the next time you find yourself awake before everyone else, sitting in that strange, quiet pocket of time, maybe don't treat it like something to fix. Maybe it's just your mind doing what it does best when it's allowed to follow its natural rhythm. And if this sounds like you, I'd love to hear what your early mornings feel like. Are they peaceful? Productive? A little surreal? Let me know. And if you enjoy exploring the hidden psychology behind everyday habits like this, stay curious, stick around, and keep learning with me.